Hello, fabulous fans and superstars of my dear friend Nadiya Shah. I am Yuriria Robles and I welcome you to the predictions for each sign for the month of April 2026. Happy birthday to all the Aries and Tauruses celebrating this month. Let's begin with a general introduction to the most important astrological conditions. The new moon on the 1st indicates the dialogue that will form this month between the energy of Venus in its ruling sign and Mars in its own. Neither of these energies will move smoothly because they will encounter obstacles contrary to their very nature. Neither placidity nor action will follow on an easy course, and I say this because we will be presented with challenges to change our tastes and adjust our actions to reality, leaving behind what we had previously imagined or enjoyed. Let's first explain the influence imposed by the Sun in Aries and its ruling planet Mars. Second, let's look at Venus emphasized by Sun's transit through Taurus. The Sun's transit through Aries is important because it marks the beginning of spring, as discussed in March. Naturally, the following days are characterized by willpower, drive, restlessness, and impatience. From the 10th to the 20th, the solar effect begins to shift, and although it retains the aforementioned characteristics, they are more unstable than at the beginning of the sign. This Aries is ruled by Mars, which is in Pisces until April the 10th. This tempers impatience and guides us according to fate, a factor that has been present for some time and will persist even when Mars enters Aries on that day, becoming the dominant planet in this sign for the remainder of the month. It's important to emphasize that while Mars remains in Pisces alongside Mercury, communication and actions will be more emotional than assertive. So, successfully directing our plans would be very clear because they will ultimately be guided by Jupiter and then by the Moon and its fluctuations. Then, the Sun joins Neptune and Saturn to conclude its stay in this sign with Chiron. This brings a series of discomforts and demands that make the last 20 days of the month frankly difficult to harmonize because these planets don't fit very well in this sign. Neptune, by its very nature, dilutes, causing a fog, so to speak, that prevents us from seeing beyond ourselves in reality and psychologically demands a goal full of light that inspires us to keep going, even if the final goal isn't truly visible. As for Saturn, the restrictions and demands inherent to this planet, which require patience, determination, and perseverance, clash with the immediacy, impatience, and speed characteristic of Aries. So this means that Saturn can express its best qualities. Combined with Neptune, it makes the situation even more contradictory. As for Chiron, which has been in this sign for 8 years, its coherent aspect has an effect that encourages us to heal our capacity for action, determination, and independence, but only at the cost of recognizing that we can't do everything immediately, much less improvise. Its incoherence has led to situations where our actions have caused us unfortunate moments that have hurt us, leaving us stuck in anger and unforgiveness, which further complicates matters. Therefore, with Chiron at the end of Aries, it demands processes of recognition and closure in what we do and what we set out to do. The first 10 days of April will be emotional, with an emphasis on what gives us security, although the speed imposed by our satellite makes it difficult to precisely define what provides security, as the focus shifts every 2.5 days. By April the 10th, Mars takes control, empowering us and compelling us to act. However, it must first descend into the depths of Neptune, leading to their first conjunction. This should ignite a spiritual task to be undertaken. It's important to clarify that this isn't about achieving anything external, but rather internal. The one we must conquer is ourselves. The subsequent conjunction of Mars and Saturn prompts us to act systematically, ideally with a strategy. If we resist developing a plan, we will only encounter frustration. This plan should span at least 2.5 years, during which we will work to establish the spiritual goal that will guide us for the next 14 years. Meanwhile, Mercury leaves Pisces and its emotional turmoil, as well as artistic inspiration, to join the ranks of planets in Aries. So just as we feel the urge to move, we will also think with enthusiasm or impatience about achieving our goals. However, it will follow the same path as Mars because it will first plunge us back into the depths of Neptune, which will encourage us to think about our goals of conquest. Let's take advantage of this time to formulate a clear plan so we can act systematically and avoid feeling like we're both holding back and going full speed ahead. Mercury is also moving alongside the Moon in Aries, whose need to act will increase dramatically, along with feelings of courage or anger. It's best to channel all these into bravery and overcoming impatience, since there won't be any possibility of acting with absolute clarity. Anyway, this April the 15th can conjunct the Sun, so it's worth noting that the lesson learned over the past 8 years mentioned earlier will become crystal clear. Remember that prudence is crucial at this time, even if it stems from the pain of past events. The new moon occurs on the 17th. It's serious. We must acknowledge that anger and impatience have had costs as high as indifference and inaction. Now it's time to move with inner clarity and certainty towards the personal conquest described earlier. Above all, we must decide that if we want to increase our security and comfort, we need to move with purpose. Only by acting can we achieve what we want, or at least get as close as possible. Staying as we are, even if it's our comfort zone, won't last long. Mercury, along with our thoughts, will draw inspiration from Neptune, guidance from Saturn, and lessons learned from the wounds inflicted by mistakes and lack of consideration. It's time to realize what we need to accept and correct it with actions, not just promises. Especially between April the 20th and the 22nd, when Mercury and Mars meet, acting and thinking with enthusiasm will be essential. At the same time, another energy will unfold, that of Venus in its ruling Taurus, bringing with it a desire to enjoy nature, comfort, beauty, and tranquility. But very soon in the month, on the 2nd and 3rd, we will enter into a discussion with others about what is good and enjoyable for everyone. And of course, everyone has their own version and needs. Clinging to what we enjoyed before will not be possible, especially when Uranus makes its final encounter in this sign. For 7 years, we have been changing our tastes and pleasures. Even romantic relationships have gone beyond the familiar to explore different connections, including the very Uranian non-binary ones. The effect of this encounter is finally a farewell kiss, since they will not meet again in this sign for another 84 years. Because on the 25th, Uranus definitely moves into Gemini. It even enters with Venus, emphasizing the very desire to connect in a light and even superficial way, and now in an original, new, and even unorthodox way. Uranus will remain for another 7 years period, although it will actually settle in more than in Taurus, because it is an air sign, so mobility, relationships, and technology will multiply exponentially. Furthermore, it will enter into harmonious dialogue with Pluto and Neptune, a relationship that signifies an advancement in reasoning, theories, and ideas, transcending the dominance of feelings and practical matters. Let's clarify that having theories and ideas does not imply that they have a connection to the material and tangible. In reality, we need to renew our ways of thinking and relating to one another. Neptune represents a new conquest of independence and self-determination, but this must be intelligent and consensual due to Pluto's demands. Although it is a harmonious energy among these planets, it is actually being channeled through our actions, movements, and organizations. Certainly, this is a renewal we have been anticipating, even desiring, so it is time to tolerate the changes, assimilate them, and integrate them. Even this will present a challenge because our thoughts will lead us back to the wounds of having tried something new and different. Forgiving what happened is essential, and moving on is even more important. Let's review the signs. It's recommended to reconsider your rising sign as well as your natal moon sign, and not just your sun sign. By considering these three perspectives, you'll better understand what's happening to you. Although ideally, you should consult a professional astrologer to get a comprehensive understanding of who you are and what awaits for you. Have a wonderful month, everyone, and see you soon. Aries. Even though the sun is still in your sign for 20 days, the movement of your ruling planet Mars is always very important for you. This month, it will be in conjunction with Venus, both affecting the axis that runs from your inner self to your relationships with partners and spouses. Let me explain. Mars will remain in Pisces until April the 10th, which means you'll be very emotional during those days because Jupiter amplifies emotions that, governed by the moon, make us move from one feeling to another without realizing it. This effect is complex for you because it can trap you in intense situations that prevent you from pursuing new opportunities. From the beginning of the month, Venus's energy appears in full force because it's in its ruling sign, Taurus, and is the ruler of the full moon in Libra. This indicates that the balance of energy for action and movement must be sustained by love and harmony in your relationships with your partner or associates. Furthermore, on the 1st, when the full moon in Libra calls for balance and justice for both you and your partner, it's essential that you consider others and not just your own will and yearn for independence. While it's true that interdependence is the main goal of any relationship, the essential thing for now is divided into two parts. The first is knowing that you have to overcome your own flaws, wage internal battles between opposing tendencies, and achieve goals that can only be attained through action, as they aren't consumables that can be ordered for delivery. The second battle is recognizing how our tastes and values have changed, and now we have to integrate them so that from now on we relate from a place of lightness and ease, avoiding superficiality. For you, Aries, the essential thing is to work on yourself, knowing that you have to overcome the fear of the imaginary, the fantastic, and even the romantic, and that you truly value perseverance and not just the improvisation and immediate conquest that comes so naturally to you from the 10th onwards. When Mars enters Aries, its energy should manifest itself much more easily for you. However, as it reunites with Neptune for the first time in 14 years, it connects you with a primary task, your inner goal, that which you will strive for from now on, and which is greater than yourself. So decide what your goal, aspiration, or conquest will be. Remember, it's within you. Don't place it outside yourself. Then you must create a plan to achieve what you want. Be disciplined and act effectively. If you don't, you will feel frustrated and held back. On the 16th, when the sun reaches Chiron, the key is to forgive yourself for what you have achieved so that you are able to move forward and try again without forgetting the lesson learned. As for Venus and its expression in you, it imposed a renewal in your tastes and values. This matter concludes now because you will build and find a new way of thinking due to the advance of Uranus and Venus into Gemini. Prepare to renew your thinking and daily communication. New people will come into your community and there will be some rifts, including with your siblings, cousins, and neighbors. The key is to renew your communication and travel to nearby places you never expected to visit. Your friends, groups, and associations will support this renewal. You could even write down what you discover. Embrace this momentum to encourage you to reach your goal. Go for it. Taurus, Venus movement is essential for you because it's your ruling planet and is currently in your sign, which you should take advantage of to express your taste, sense of harmony, and enjoyment. Just remember that you should have updated your preferences 7 years ago. Shift from safe, pleasant, and natural situations and tastes to adventures, novelties, and the more extravagant, the better. This is due to the presence of Uranus, which will be joined by Venus for the last time, and together they will enter Gemini on April the 24th. Immediately after, we will have the opportunity to question and leave behind dramas, victimhood, and criticism, judgment as well. Venus in the immediate future and Uranus in the long term will suggest light, easy, and multiple relationships. The full moon on the first day of the month in Libra signifies the power of Venusian activities, such as harmonizing, connecting, beautifying, and even speaking elegantly and reaching agreement. Even Pluto's extended presence in Aquarius signals a strong impetus for you to be flexible and above all to begin creating professional proposals as a team, training yourself and others in situations that demonstrate benefit to the majority, not just yourself. Regarding its transit through Aries, it activates what you fear most in relation to your own nature. Suddenly, activating yourself, improvising, and even worse, interrupting and giving up is not what you would choose. This happens every year, and from now on, it will be even more so. However, it's time to work on these situations, emphasized mainly by Neptune's long-term movements, Saturn's medium-term movements, 2.5 years to be precise, and Mars, which immediately activates situations that at first glance seem threatening to you. You might even argue and explain why they are enemies, when in reality they are what you fear most and must confront. Even Mercury's entry into Aries at the very end brings sudden ideas to mind, interrupting situations and not truly holding up. Even the new moon on the 17th emphasizes the desire to act. Overcoming anger and rage is essential to acting courageously and avoiding impatience. The Sun, Mars, and Mercury will reach Chiron, allowing you to see clearly what has hurt you, and more importantly, what has hurt your perceived enemies. Even the new moon in Aries implies active work in the most delicate area of your consciousness, that of enemies, who are nothing more than reflections of your own perspective. You must be generous and understand that everyone has a weak point where we were victims of circumstances And now all that remains is to find a way to understand the lesson and, of course, forgive. The dialogue that will immediately unfold between Neptune, Uranus, and Pluto presents you with a new way to be professional, modernize your resources, and value technology, all provided you decide to act and overcome old fears. Of course, you can. Gemini, at the beginning of the month, your ruling planet Mercury is still in Pisces, where it has been since February 7th. Its retrograde motion has been one of the strongest in recent times, allowing for confusion, misunderstandings, and even outright lies about our surroundings. Even Mars still in Pisces until April the 10th leads us to act with a sense of faith at best, or with a blind and possibly deceptive faith unless we are engaged in artistic pursuits. Since the beginning of the month, the full moon in Libra on the 1st indicates that we need to find a balance between our desire for connection and our desire to act independently and self-determinedly. It is a powerful lunation because Venus is in its ruling sign, Taurus, strengthens the desire to peacefully enjoy what you don't actually like, because settling down or freezing in one place is not your preference. What you enjoy is moving and going somewhere. In this particular matter, good news are coming your way because on the 25th, Uranus enters your sign, where it will remain for 7 years, revolutionizing your pace and making your movements even more disconcerting and unexpected. This is an exciting adventure for your energy, and I truly believe you will enjoy it, especially since Pluto, now in Aquarius, is also energy that will transform reasoning, ideas, theories, and above all, the way we relate to one another. As a Gemini, you are capable of connecting immediately with many people, one by one. But Aquarius gives you the energy to connect with a group. Therefore, you will enjoy multiple ways of meeting and connecting with others. Something I believe will make you very happy. Now, the Sun's transit through Aries, which activates the area of your friends and groups as well as your hopes every year, will be particularly intense for you. This year, the activity in that area will be especially intense from now on. First, because in the long term, Neptune enters, inviting everyone to a conquest that represents a greater good, a connection with a spirit that should ideally be individual. But in this case, Neptune encompasses the whole, dissolving boundaries between you, others, and the universe, something we already know to be true. Nevertheless, the task involves achieving independence within the group. The goal is actually called interdependence. In the medium term, you will feel the effect of Saturn in this same area, which will mean that you will try to organize the task, divide it into activities for each team, and define your leader. It is certainly important to achieve this because it will be a method that should be established so that the goal can be reached. If the organization is postponed, it will be difficult to achieve later. Mars' entry into its ruling sign on April the 10th allows for its best expression as we feel the impulse to act spontaneously with an immense desire for conquest. However, being accompanied by the other planets, it must, so to speak, attend to its guests, so order and spirituality must be included in the conquest. Even Mercury's entry into Aries at the end of all the other planets' transits brings sudden ideas to mind, interrupting situations and not truly sustaining them. What is fundamental to preserving is an enthusiasm. Even the new moon in Aries on the 17th emphasizes the desire to undertake projects. Overcoming anger and rage is essential to acting courageously, avoiding impatience. The Sun's advance into Taurus on April the 19th naturally leads to vitality, pleasure, and even enjoyment and contentment. With Venus in this sign as its ruling planet, we can enjoy love and relationships even more. Although for the past 7 years, Uranus has been imposing challenges of innovation, disruption, and unorthodox approaches, changing our tastes and the way we relate to one another. However, on the 25th of this month, after their last meeting in this sign in 84 years, they will move together into the next station, precisely your sign. Then the dialogue that will immediately be established between Neptune, Uranus, and Pluto will fill you with opportunities, freedoms, and disruptions that, while initially uncomfortable, are intended to broaden your perspective. Cancer. Since the beginning of the month, the full moon in Libra on the 1st indicates that we need to find a balance between our desire for connection and acting independently and self-determinedly. We need to connect with others to overcome boredom, but negotiation requires overcoming indecisiveness. All the energy of Aries this month propels us towards this latter point. Furthermore, the moon faces a dialogue that demands balance due to Saturn. This relationship between Saturn and the moon is the key that unlocks the month because the ruling planets of the sign where these planets are located are empowered. Let me explain. Venus is strong and gives us its best expression in Taurus and will remain so from the beginning of the month until the 24th when it moves into Gemini. Even the Sun's entry into Taurus on April 19th emphasizes pleasure, comfort, nature, and relationships. However, for the past 7 years, Uranus' presence in this sign has offered everyone new and original tastes, pleasures, and ways of relating to one another. However, on the 24th, Venus joins Uranus in their last conjunction in this sign, a conjunction that won't be repeated for another 84 years. Together, they will enter Gemini the following day, further accelerating thought, movement, and communication. Now, for you, Cancer, this presents a challenge because being in constant motion doesn't give you time to feel secure and settle in your own space. You fear losing your comfort zone, but from now on, you have no choice but to get used to speed, to lightheartedness, relationships free of drama, resentment, and attachment. Freedom will be paramount from now on. As for Mars, and due to the Sun's transit through Aries, they bring vitality to action. That is, we will feel alive and energized if we are on the move, until the 10th of Mars remains in Pisces, accompanied by Mercury in this sign, which can cause us to confuse thoughts with feelings. So we have these 10 days to find inspiration and lay the groundwork for higher education or that trip that you've been planning. As soon as Mars enters Aries, it will conjunct Neptune, making us dream of an extraordinary ideal, a goal beyond human attainability, yet dazzling enough to tempt us to pursue it. Decide to be willing to move, to leave your comfort zone behind. You really have no other choice. A few days later, when Mars conjuncts Saturn, it will be a first obstacle unless you take charge and create a plan to achieve your goals. Remember, the process, not the destination, is what matters. If you don't organize yourself, you'll feel frustrated and angry. Even Mercury's entry into Aries at the very end brings sudden ideas to mind, interrupting situations and not truly sustaining them. Even the Aries new moon on the 17th emphasizes the desire to act. Overcoming anger is essential to acting courageously and avoiding impatience. Remember, that although Chiron may have reminded you how painful it can be to move forward, life demands precisely that constant movement in order to exist. The dialogue that will immediately take place between Neptune, Uranus, and Pluto presents you with the challenge of overcoming the fear of movement and reasoning so that you can achieve new professional and social goals. Go for it. Leo, the sun's movements are essential for you because it is your ruling planet. So I suggest you follow its movements as they directly affect you. For now, your energy will be directed toward professional studies, long journeys, and courtrooms. First, while Mars is in Pisces for the first 10 days of the month, you are invited to resolve past dramas and feelings of victimization, not only your own, but also those created by your partners or spouse. Mercury will be in Pisces, which can lead to confusion between thoughts and feelings. The Sun's passage through Aries, which naturally brings to your awareness each year those higher education, studies, or beliefs that can inspire you to create and express yourself, will also be present. Therefore, starting on the 10th, when Mars, the ruling planet of Aries, enters this sign, you will feel inspired to undertake the effort to learn and go out and explore the world. However, a few days later, Mars joined Neptune. From our perspective, this means you'll face an enormous task that will inspire you to connect your spirituality with a higher mission. This is a long-term endeavor, lasting at least 14 years. 2 days later, Mars joins Saturn. You'll be asked to follow a specific program or discipline that you'll need to strive to maintain for 2.5 years. You'll do well to embrace it, as it will remain relevant for a long time. Even Mercury's entry into Aries at the very end brings sudden ideas to mind which disrupt situations and don't really hold up, unless you've already developed the plan I mentioned earlier. You'll direct your thoughts toward this new beginning, which is generally very beneficial if you follow the steps the planets indicate. Even the Aries new moon on the 17th emphasizes the desire to take action. Overcoming anger and frustration is essential to acting courageously and avoiding impatience. Now the challenge comes from Venus and its movements. Since the beginning of the month, the full moon in Libra on the 1st has been influenced by Venus, indicating that you need to find a balance between your desire for connection and your desire to act independently and self-determinedly. This manifests in the area of your relationships with siblings, cousins, and neighbors, with whom you need to connect to overcome boredom and negotiate decisively. However, being a full moon, the strength to act independently and without hesitation is entirely possible. The goal is balance. Don't allow either pole to dominate. Now, if we explain this energy and how it affects your thinking, the truth is that thinking fairly, seeking to harmonize what you know with what you learn, is a task that has only just begun. The Sun's advance into Taurus on April 19th further strengthens Venus, which has been in Taurus since the beginning of the month, bringing with it a desire for tranquility, enjoying nature, and finding calm in life. However, it is there that you will encounter Uranus for the last time in this sign, which has brought about a renewal of your tastes, pleasures, and preferences in the professional and social spheres. I say it is for the last time because Uranus is leaving this sign for good and will not return for another 84 years. On the 25th, they will enter Gemini together, stirring up your friendships, social groups, and hopes. This won't directly affect you, but it certainly reinforces the fact that you need to transform your romantic relationship with the help of the connections you forge now and the new knowledge you acquire. Virgo, at the beginning of the month, your ruling planet Mercury is still in Pisces, where it has been since February the 7th. Its retrograde has been one of the strongest in recent times, allowing for confusion, misunderstandings, and even outright lies regarding our surroundings. For you, it still affects romantic and business relationships, which demand feelings, consideration, and empathy. Take this opportunity to review one last time the dramas and victimizations you have endured for a long time. Just don't project them onto others. You can also be yourself in your relationship with your partner. This will make it easier to repair the damage and understand that you need to improve yourself. It has been a long enough lesson to forget that you can also be sensitive and imaginative in addition to being rational and practical. Its effect will last until April the 14th, when it moves into Aries, prompting us to think with enthusiasm, boldness, and courage. Unless we become confused and impatient with our own ideas and those of others, leading to anger and recklessness. Even Mars, still in Pisces until April the 10th, prompts action in the area of relationships and partnerships. So these days, there are still things to accomplish. Regarding your relationship, try to resolve pending issues and avoid arguments. The situation is very emotional and there's no room for excuses or justifications, much less for criticism. When Mars joins the Sun in Aries, we'll face the need to act enthusiastically to achieve new conquests. You'll act with faith that will illuminate in the best case scenario or with a blind faith that may deceive. However, the following day, it will meet with Neptune, encouraging you to close spending cycles, which will require you to understand that these are personal matters, not issues with others. Here I ask you to give enough patience to invest with your partners or spouse. Please be calm enough to invest from now on. Please think carefully before getting excited about fabulous investment schemes and sharing resources. When Mars catches up with Saturn, you will have the energy to implement a program or plan that you can define now. This should protect you from deception and fantasies from now on. Also, Mercury's entry into Aries at the end of the month brings sudden ideas to mind which interrupt situations and don't really hold up. Even the new moon in Aries on the 17th comes to emphasize the desire to undertake projects. Overcoming anger and rage is essential to be able to act courageously, avoiding impatience. Since the beginning of the month, the full moon in Libra on the 1st indicates that we need to have a balance between our desire for connection and our desire to act independently and self-determinately. This leads me to continue with the theme of being mindful of what you earn in relation to what you spend. Your values of harmony, beauty, and justice must be balanced with the impulse to follow financial schemes that are not sustainable in the long run. With this moon in Libra, don't invest or spend out of boredom. Learn to negotiate boldly to overcome indecisiveness. Its ruling planet is Venus, which is in Taurus. Therefore, the desire to enjoy and learn from the beauty and richness of life is easy for you to understand, even though you've been changing your mind for years because you found the different, the novel, more interesting. With the Sun's advance into Taurus on April the 19th, this theme of finding pleasure in the unexpected and different reaches its culmination because Venus and Uranus will meet for the last time in this sign and won't do so again for another 84 years. Together they will advance into Gemini, your professional and social sphere, which will begin to undergo a revolution. To be honest, this won't be easy for you because there won't be time for excessive or detailed analysis. Get used to spilled, to casual and superficial multiple relationships so you can connect as much as possible with internal and external mobility. The sooner you adapt, the easier it will be to achieve the worldly success you seek. You have your team at your disposal. The key is to be willing to close chapters and not be misled by magical schemes. Libra. Since the beginning of the month, the full moon in Libra, specifically on the 1st, indicates that we need to find a balance between our desire for connection and our need to act independently and self-determinedly. Strive for your professional and social achievements at the beginning of the month. You'll still have empathy at work and will receive support. As a Libra, social interaction is fundamental to you. Anything else may bore you. Expressing your negotiation skills with your partner or associates will be very important from now on. The Sun's transit through Aries already activates the area of relationships and partnerships. With Mars entering this sign, it may bring someone into your life or encourage you to go out and find your ideal partner. It is important to be aware of this because it immediately comes into contact with Neptune, which will exponentially increase what is already a reality for you, finding your ideal partner. You will only have Saturn in Aries, which could very well formalize the relationship in the next 30 months, but afterward, only the idea of perfection will remain, which in truth, no human can achieve. This will continue for the next 14 years. Finally, Mercury's entry into Aries at the very end brings sudden ideas to mind, interrupting situations and ultimately failing to sustain them. I know you have been through a tremendous ordeal because of Chiron, which brought you the awareness that no human being is perfect. You would do well to forgive what happened and connect with the divine in a close way, so that you may receive its guidance, wisdom, and understanding. This way, you won't demand it from your partner, who is just that, a human being. Even the new moon in Aries on the 17th emphasizes the desire to embark on a romantic relationship. Overcome your anger and frustration if you find that it isn't as perfect as you imagined. It's essential that you act courageously, avoiding impatience. Now, as I mentioned, your ruling planet is strong in Taurus. With the Sun's transit into Taurus on April the 19th, the area of investments and shared resources with your partner and associates is emphasized as it is every year. Certainly, there have been breakups and surprises in the last 7 years that may not have been comfortable, but they were liberating. Their purpose was to renew the values you share with your partner. This process concludes on April the 25th when Venus and Uranus move together into Gemini. At this time, your ideas, higher education, relationships abroad, short and frequent trips to distant places, and even legal matters will be renewed. Try to avoid superficiality and assimilate all the ideas that come to a process you will enjoy immensely. The dialogue that will immediately be established between Neptune, Uranus, and Pluto presents you with an opportunity for a new way of relating and certainly a different partner or associates. The important thing is always to accept people as they are. Nobody is ideal 100% of the time, not even yourself. Scorpio. Since the beginning of the month, the full moon in Libra on the 1st indicates that you need to balance the need for harmony in the institutions where you work with your daily work activities. This area of your life will experience a surprising amount of activity. The key is to be diplomatic, fair, and elegant at work, avoiding indecisiveness. While you may want to protect your established ideas, innovation must be allowed, and there is no way to prevent it. Remember that you are in a long period of transformation. You will gain new knowledge, new ways of understanding your foundations, your family, and ancestral relationships. You will understand your homeland differently. It's about being more flexible. So, acting independently and self determined is not a problem for you in the workplace. And as I mentioned, it will be evident. However, the energy of Aries challenges you to confront yourself and asks you to moderate your impulses or imprudences, which should actually be expressed in an orderly manner so that they can be integrated with diplomacy and elegance. The Sun's annual transit through Aries activates your work and health routines. For the past 9 years, Chiron has been bringing situations that have made it difficult to act in a timely and appropriate manner. So Mars' entry into this sign this year is very significant because it reinforces the vital need to move forward. From the 10th onward, our actions will be impulsive and certainly spontaneous. Take advantage of this planet's conjunction with Neptune to regain the inspiration to work for something greater than yourself every day. It might manifest as an immediate conquest, but it's actually a long-term spiritual goal, and the conquest is certainly internal, not external. Recognize the character traits that have brought you this far and which ones you truly need to overcome to achieve what you intend. Saturn offers you this opportunity if you create a method or plan to implement, allowing you to exponentially develop your work capacity. Finally, Mercury's entry into Aries brings sudden ideas to mind, interrupting situations and not truly lasting. Even the Aries new moon at 17th emphasizes the desire to take action. Overcoming anger and frustration is essential to acting courageously and avoiding impatience. The Sun's advance into Taurus on April the 19th brings the power of Venus into this ruling sign, which represents a culmination in your relationships with partners and associates. Although you should have already experienced a new way of relating to others over the past 7 years, the essential point in truth was for you to learn that it's not about controlling others, but about living together in freedom. Now, on the 25th, Venus and Uranus will move together into Gemini, which means you will have to bring the new values you share with your partner to the difficult ones because they involve little commitment, are scattered, and even superficial. You will have to learn them from the new flexibility you are acquiring. Sagittarius, while your ruling planet is in Cancer, feelings will be very important because they are magnified and must be considered in order to grow with the resources you share with your partners and spouse. However, it will no longer be possible to live them in the comfort of your accustomed state because the drive to renew love and creativity will be emphasized from now on. At the same time, your friends demand harmony and diplomacy. Loved ones ask you to let go of resentment and the fear of leaving the familiar. Since the beginning of the month, the full moon in Libra on the 1st indicates that you must balance your desire for connection with the desire to act independently and self-determinantly with your children and loved ones. Connecting is essential to overcome boredom but counteract your natural tendency to be a flirt. Each year, the Sun's passage through Aries brings energy to your creativity, both physical and spiritual. So this area will be emphasized significantly in the coming years. Mars is the first to enter Aries on the 10th, which strengthens the sign and its expression. However, the first thing it will encounter is Neptune, which will remain in that sign for 14 years. Imagine then an enormous spiritual and creative conquest that surpasses you and for which you can request the help of the infinite force that Neptune represents. It is in the area of creativity where it can be most useful. Immediately after, it will encounter Saturn, so the next step is to establish a commitment, whether for love or for creativity. This is inevitable, and we strongly suggest it because if you establish it well for the next 14 years, you will simply follow the momentum, and it will be very useful for consolidating what you aspire to. Finally, Mercury's entry into Aries at the very end brings sudden ideas to mind. These interrupt situations and don't really last. Even the Aries new moon on the 17th emphasizes the desire to take action. Overcoming anger and frustration is essential to acting courageously and avoiding impatience. The Sun's move into Taurus on April the 19th brings attention and energy to the area of daily work and health routines, with Venus already in this zone and with the full force of its ruling power. You are likely to enjoy new job opportunities and an original way of approaching your work and health routines. The lesson concludes on April 25th when Uranus and Venus move together into Gemini. In this sign, they will manifest differently, giving rise to new ways of relating to others with ease, lightness, and multiplicity. Now, this doesn't mean it will be easy, especially since the nodes will indicate a need to create empathetic relationships, as we learned from Neptune in Pisces, particularly within the family. For you, romantic relationships should now be interesting, lighthearted, and dynamic. You won't have much interest in serving others, much less criticizing or judging them. The dialogue that will immediately be established between Neptune, Uranus, and Pluto will allow you to communicate with your partner intelligently and creatively. Show enthusiasm and energy to sustain this process. Capricorn. From now on, the transformation of your relationships at home will demand your full attention. Since the beginning of the month, the full moon in Libra on the 1st indicates that you must balance your desire for connection with your desire to act independently and self-determinedly at home, which is certainly not easy because you must take others into account. This full moon confronts you with yourself and asks you to moderate your impulses or recklessness, which due to the energy of Aries must be expressed in an orderly manner so that they can be integrated with diplomacy and elegance. Above all, because your ruling planet Saturn entered Aries last month, closely following Neptune, this creates extraordinary circumstances full of challenges and enthusiasm, although truly spiritual, intangible from your perspective. The Sun's transit through the sign of Aries itself brings you enthusiasm and a sense of dominance and conquest. In your own home, perhaps those who live with you may feel competition with your ability to achieve your goals. On the 10th, Mars also enters Aries, strengthening the situation at home. However, actions must truly follow what you've organized. If the plan is well established, it might make some effort at first, requiring people to show enthusiasm. Remember that boundaries are meant to contain direct efforts. This won't be difficult for you. Finally, Mercury's entry into Aries bring sudden ideas to mind, disrupting situations and not truly sustaining them. The most important thing is to avoid anger and impatience, especially with those closest to you. Even the Aries new moon on the 17th emphasizes the desire to undertake new projects. Overcoming courage and anger is essential to acting bravely and achieving success. The sun's move into Taurus on April the 19th makes things easier for you because it illuminates and revitalizes your loved ones and children, with Venus strongly present in this area since the beginning of the month. Pleasant and easy situations are coming your way. Uranus in this sign has brought you new situations and relationships that you've truly enjoyed. Venus and Uranus will enter Gemini together on the 25th, and although Venus will only stay for a short time and Uranus for 7 years, their conjunct signifies new work relationships, technology, and mobility. The immediate interaction between Neptune, Uranus, and Pluto will present you with new technological resources, provided you involve your family and those you live with, as well as cultivate multiple and above all intelligent work relationships. Aquarius. The dialogue that will immediately be established between Pluto, Neptune, and Uranus presents you with an extraordinary opportunity to integrate new adventures, people, and ideas into your daily life, filling you with enthusiasm. It's about creating a new team, and you're an expert at that. Since the beginning of the month, the full moon in Libra on the 1st indicates that you should connect your ideas of justice with your relationships with siblings, cousins, and neighbors, as well as with your loved ones and children. This is provided you maintain a balance between your desire for connection and acting independently and self-determinedly. The sun's entry into Aries brings new ideas full of enthusiasm every year, and this year is no exception. On the contrary, it's the beginning of an extraordinary period, as Neptune brings with it the inescapable invitation to a spiritual space larger than you've ever imagined. Of course, it's a challenge because entering the divine world is a challenge to your excessive rationality. Also in Aries, we find Saturn, your ruling planet, lending you all the support you need to organize your mind and the tasks and achievements you need to accomplish. Mars' entry into this sign, where it's very strong as the ruling planet on the 10th, brings enough energy to act on everything you have organized. You have the power to sustain the entire process for as long as necessary. Finally, Mercury's entry into Aries at the very end brings sudden ideas to mind, interrupting situations and not truly lasting. Avoid impatience and anger. This is your greatest challenge. Even the Aries new moon on the 17th emphasizes the desire to act. Overcoming courage and anger is essential to acting bravely. The sun's advance into Taurus on April the 19th will not be so easy for you because you will face very fixed situations in your home that resist change. Things can't continue the same way, and Uranus transit should have shown us that. You and everyone else must have gotten used to the unexpected by now. Don't forget the lesson. On the 25th, Venus and Uranus will enter Gemini together, forming an aspect that will allow you to multiply your romantic relationships and facilitate communication with your children. It's about being able to accept the changing times, avoiding rigidity, demandingness, and above all, foolishness. Pisces. While your ruling planet is in Cancer, feelings will be very important because they magnify your romantic relationships and creativity. However, The planetary movements in Aries should be considered to encourage you to create new resources. You need to move beyond simply pleasing your partner or associates. It's necessary to act and pursue new financial gains. Since the beginning of the month, the full moon in Libra on the 1st indicates that you need to balance your desire to share with your partners or spouse while also acting independently and self-determinedly in accordance with your own values and resources. On the other hand, this lunation also presents you with the opportunity to overcome your fears of pure reasoning from free intuition, gut feelings, and assumptions. Each year, the sun's passage through Aries energizes your resources and the way you acquire them. The point is that you might be encouraged to start a business, but the efforts may not last long enough. Now things will be different in that Neptune, which has just entered this sign, brings you an enormous goal, certainly demanding all the enthusiasm and faith you can muster. Fortunately, the presence of Saturn, also recently entered Aries, imposes a method for you to organize your goals and aspirations. Try to do this immediately to make your purpose sustainable. If you implement it well, it will carry you forward for the next 14 years. Even Mars, which enters Aries on the 10th, acquires positive force because it is the ruling planet of the sign and will direct all the efforts of the various planets in this sign. Finally, Mercury's entry into Aries at the very end brings sudden ideas to mind. They interrupt situations and don't really last, but they can fill you with enthusiasm. Even the new moon in Aries on the 17th comes to emphasize the desire to undertake projects. Overcoming anger and frustration is essential to acting courageously, avoiding impatience. The sun's transit into Taurus on April the 19th encourages conversations with siblings, cousins, and neighbors. Venus has been strong there since the beginning of the month, encouraging you to enjoy life. Although Uranus has been in the same sign for the past 7 years, it has brought new everyday situations with the aforementioned people. This period ends on April the 25th as Venus and Uranus enter Gemini together. While Venus will only remain for a short time, Uranus will stay for the next 7 years, revolutionizing relationships, mobility, and communication. Yes, you can. The dialogue that will immediately develop between Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto presents you with an opportunity to communicate easily and intelligently with those at home. Your values will shift, requiring you to think intelligently, as we have already explained. Certainly you can do it. See you soon.